We got a roadmap roundup this week. They introducing us to 4.0 here, and we're going to go over that in a haluva detail. You know how it is. We're going with the YouTube videos. We're going to dive back in time and see what this stuff all means for the actual game in all the detailed glory. Where the heck did 4.0 come from? Why is there so much attention on 4.0 all the freaking time? We've been on the road to 4.0 for like 4 years. But the real, was it 2017? It might have been 2016, actually. Was it 2016? It was 2016, yes. This is where 4.0 started. Oh my God. You can see what research I've already been doing recently. This is where 4.0 started. I would like to emphasize here that 3.1, this is all kind of a 3.0 branch roadmap. 3.0 was supposed to be Q1 of 2017, maybe 2018. Could have been 2018. I don't know. One of those years was supposed to be Q1, right? At the end of Q1, we were supposed to get 3.1. The end of Q2, we're supposed to get 3.2. 2, wherever it is. Q3, 3.3. Q4, 4.0. So this is where it all started. Check it out.
And so that's what we're going to have with 3.3. Here we go. And then finally, 4.0. So this is which will be, that'll be the first time we'll go beyond Stanton to other star systems. I'm not going to say how many star systems yet. Depends how much we'll be able to build with our content pipeline, which we'll show you a little bit up and coming here. But we're very focused on, if you've seen some of the ATV, how to author star systems at the quality level that we like. With a sense of lore and art and character and history, but be able to do planets, because I mean, sometimes in FPS games people spend forever years just making a small 2x2 kilometer level, and obviously for us to build the system, the universe that we need, we need to be a bit faster than that. But we will have 4.0 is when you will be able to jump to other star systems. Exploration and discovery will be sort of highlight there for
that is a thing
for obvious reasons. Science and research, and the RSI Orion and the Crucible will be two of the big ships that we will be doing.
I like. That's so funny. He's like, yeah, you're gonna go to different star systems, and yeah, you're gonna get to do exploration and discovery, and fly around in different places. Yeah, science and research, okay, and then ships are like the science and research got like 1 second.
Systems. Exploration and discovery will be sort of highlight there for obvious reasons. Science and research. The RSI Orion and the Crucible will be.
Like, y'all don't need to worry about science and research. Okay, so from this list, we are indeed getting the jump points, solid. Getting multiple star systems, right? Pyro. Exploration and discovery. I'm really hoping, and we're going to go over this in the roadmap roundup, I'm really hoping that we get to see some updates to the star map with 4.0, like placeable waypoints and, just finishing off that segment. 323 was a great way to start the star map update, but we really need to be able to save locations and share them. Like that is exploration. If you can get that into 4.0 CIG, you're gonna meet this roadmap. The roadmap doesn't matter. It's like 7 years old, but still, it'd be really nice to be going into a new star system and be able to save locations, because Pyro's massive and you can't just always meet at a space station in Pyro because those people are crazy. They'll kill you, Science and research is that I don't think we're really going to see much of that. I don't even know really what that was referring to. Could have been Endeavor gameplay, I'm not sure. And then the RSI Orion and Anvil Crucible both won't be in game. We won't have the capital ship level of either of those gameplay segments. That's mining and repair. And it's probably a good thing that they won't be in the game. The longer these ships take, sounds weird, but the longer these ships take, the better they're going to be. Because if they put these ships in the game before the gameplay is ready, we're going to get another case of the Reclaimer and its Claw and people not being happy with what they're doing with the Claw, because the Claw came before Salvage did. So that was where 4.0 came from. And it just kept going from there. That was the sound of it going down. There we go. That one. It just kept going up. In fact, a couple of citizen cons were the road to 4.0. Actually, one of them was the road to 4.0. The other one was just themed all about Pyro. Like this Intergalactic Aerospace Expo was all about Pyro. This video series was called Journey to 4.0. Quickly stopped. That's 4.0 has so many like just freaking trash in its wake of like, used you for hype, you're gone. Used you for hype, get out of here, sit back. Like this playlist started in CitizenCon 2952, and then the final video in the playlist came out March 9th, 2023. They just stopped. But like that's just kind of how 4.0 has been. And that's really because of server meshing. 4.0 was always a server meshing thing. That was kind of the point of 4.0. And server meshing took a freaking while to get working. So 4.0 had to keep getting pushed back over and over. And while the content for 4.0s might have been done at those times, and they might have been ready to push the content, the tech that was supposed to support it was never ready. That actually has helped. Because can you guys imagine what 4.0 would have looked like if they pushed it 3 years ago? Compared to the game that we're getting now with Squadron 42 being able to help polish some of these systems with like an actual star map working. I'm not going to lie, that would have been painful to have been playing in Pyro all these years. Reputation would not have been working correctly. Like, yeah. So maybe all the content would have been a delay. Maybe it's not just server meshing. Maybe they were trying to say that the content was ready and it really wasn't, because honestly 3 years ago 4.0 would not have been a good update. 2018 actually, the next year, is where they really solidify things with the road to release.
And so from our standpoint, in terms of
this is the big one, folks.
The experience,
check it out,
when you guys can sit in and play the game day after day and not worry about it getting wiped, not worrying about, oh, I'm going to do something for a day or two and there's no point because they're going to reset the system. When we get to full persistence and server meshing, that's our marker. And sure, after that, we've got planets to do and star systems, and we're going to have continual feature development. But this is an online live game, and so for us, we don't have a particular viewpoint in terms of, oh, that's it. This is where we finish it, and we don't do any more work. It's like literally, we kind of view, as long as you guys want to live in this universe, every 3 months. We're giving you a build, and here you are, and here's a bit more, and here's a bit more, and here's a bit more. And when we get to the full persistence and server meshing, I think at that point, that's when we're not going to be resetting the servers. It's when it will be an ongoing, living, breathing game.
Okay, so
and
I feel like he's kind of meshing stuff here. No pun intended. I feel like he's kind of meshing talk there, because he's saying, yeah, we're reaching, like, server meshing is... He's talking about a 1.0 here. Really funny, because people get mad about a 1.0 talk now. This dude is literally talking 1.0 back in 2018 on the stage, and we can't even get through what update server mesh is coming in. But this is the hope that he has. They hit 4.0. Server meshing is in the game. Server meshing and persistence, yeah? These two goals that they hit persistence last year. Server meshing is looking like it's going to be this year. From here on, it's content and features. The rendering engine is in a good place. We're getting the Vulkan API. We're getting global illumination pretty soon. Upscaling. All the optimization is starting to happen in that section. Audio is clearly getting its update from that side of the engine. The Planet Tech is in a good place. They're now working on machine learning to help get themselves more systems and more planets quickly. Server meshing was like the stopgap. And you can actually see in some of the feature stuff we're about to look at, like the transit system refactor, the mission system refactor, these things could not happen until server meshing was done. And there's tons of things like that. Server meshing has been holding stuff back, and they really haven't been designing a lot of the MMO specific stuff until it was in a better place. That's basically what he's saying here. Not to say it's going to happen fast or right after all of this, it's going to go smoothly. But that's the plan. It was the plan 6 years ago here on stage. It seems to be the plan that they're hitting now this year.
A bit more. And when we get to the full persistence and server meshing, I think at that point, that's when we're not going to be resetting the servers. It's when it will be an ongoing, living, breathing game. And that, I'm not going to give you a date, but...
He totally would then give us dates for multiple years after that.
Watch on our roadmap as we develop it. And just watch for that, because us internally, those are what we view as our sort of cornerstones that we need to get to. And yes, there's a lot of other things that we've talked about that we're also working on. But when we get that, we feel like it will be a game like no other. So that is kind of what we, in terms of road to release. But speaking of near-term release,
all right. So that's
3.3.
They're still.
I think we're going to go wide.
3.3 to PTU. Yeah, they're still on that. Actually, this was huge. 3.3 was when we got object container streaming. You guys remember that? Remember that, like doubling your frame rate? So they're still going. They're still heading that direction. One of the things, honestly, CIG does they do some stuff. They make some bad plays. But they do actually end up hitting a lot of the long-term stuff. They miss a lot of them. I mean, I just put out a video about the hibernation mode, and we'll see what's going to happen with that. But sometimes I'm surprised when they come back around and actually do manage to like stay consistent with some of the stuff. Okay, so here are the things that they are looking to do with Star Citizen 4.0 release. Server meshing v1. The initial implementation of server meshing enables multiple servers per shard to improve load distribution and facilitates navigation between two solar systems. Not much being led up there. Just the fact that there's going to be multiple servers and two solar systems. Hey, at least do we know there's going to be two solar systems? That's something. That means at least two servers. Cool. But yeah, server meshing, we've talked a lot about that already, so we don't need to go into more detail, but this is the big one. This is what the whole patch is going to depend on. We're looking at a 3.18 here. Not in the sense that it's going to go poorly. It could. But just in the sense that like 3.18 got held back because PES wasn't ready. 4.0 will get held back if server meshing isn't ready. We just talked about how that's been happening for the last several years. Mission system refactor. Reworking the underlying mission system to become compatible with server meshing, allowing for easier creation and maintenance of mission content. Don't know if this means anything for us. It obviously would mean that missions work better, persist better, and likely just like spawn better, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if this has any front end effects. That'd be interesting to find out. Surely it's something that they'll talk about over the next few months. All of this stuff is stuff they'll talk about over the next few months oh boy, they will talk a lot about it. Here's the thing. Y'all have seen what they're doing with these shows now? Instead of giving us, this is it's a peeve. Oh, it's a peeve. Check this out. Look at their old YouTube. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. Bear with me. It happens. Okay, I'm a tomato. I can't stay still. I'm always red. If you look back at their old Inside Star Citizen, let's just like click into one of these. Let's say plan and scan. What is this? What's here? What are you guys doing? All right, so they're covering scanning gameplay. Sure. But then Jared comes in. And what happens?
We're going to learn more about how it all works tomorrow on Star Citizen Live when Sean Tracy and members of the vehicle tech team join us to answer your questions live. But up next, it's that time. Let's jump into another sprint report.
See, I didn't even know this episode had a sprint report, but you could just jump into a Star Citizen, Inside Star Citizen, and boom.
Up first, let's take a look at some recent progress on hospitals.
Man, I missed
Starting with these myriad hospital props like tables for the waiting area and medical trolleys you can expect to see rolling through the hallways. There was even a recent concept for this high-tech gurney, and when I think about the push-pull possibilities,
get out of here, Star. No,
it reminds
it's not
me
time.
of the first time I was kicked out of a hospital. And the second. The team also progressed on the gray box for new Babbage's emergency.
So this isn't 4.0, but you get it. Like literally, we would just get updates of everything going on. It could be the next patch. It could be a couple patches later. It could be something that they want to spotlight at the end of the year. Like, they had these nice sprint reports that would just give you a general update around the studio. And we actually have had a couple. I think the last time we had one was here, Sprint Talk Yai. You guys remember this? This was a good one.
Right, so it should be noted that the wanted, fugitive, and stasis cargo container...
In fact, this is the last time we heard about the Apollo.
Progress of the RSI Apollo Medevac, which is currently in production.
See, that's the kind of stuff you get from sprint reports. You just get a little touch here, a little touch there. And that was fun. Now, Inside Star Citizen is all about whatever's coming up in the next patch, which is, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a ton of sense, sure. It's just we miss out on a lot more of the details about other types of things. Back to whatever the heck, however, I don't know how I got on that topic. The transit and mission system refactor are both possibly back end, possibly front end. We'll hear more about those. That's right. I was talking about hearing about stuff on Inside Star Citizen. We'll see what happens with them. I don't know. But this is the real exciting part. Oh boy! Ooh! I know planets are like, yeah, they can do planets, but I love planets. I think if Star Citizen wasn't a thing, one of my favorite games would probably be Star Engine. I think it's, no. Is it Star Engine? No. What was it called? Space Engine, that one. The game where you can just fly around and look at planets. That's sick. That's kind of why I started playing Star Citizen. I just wanted to get in a ship, go around to planets and walk around. Really excited when it comes to planets. I've always been a big fan of Star Citizen's planet tech. They're very good at their planet tech. They do great work with it. And the general idea around Star Citizen systems is also interesting to me. I just like a good fiction. Star Wars, Star Trek, Dune, name it. Starting to get a little bit into Neuromancer. It's cool stuff. Getting to see how somebody might imagine another star system coming together. Like, they're stars, right? They're basically they're the everything that they control everything we know. Yeah, it's like a pretty important thing. So seeing somebody explore how they can develop and create planets and what those planets can be like based on their star and everything around it, really cool stuff. So I'm excited to see Pyro developing and really growing in its lore. As we initially had a good view of all of the planets, we knew what they were. In fact, they had different lore than they do now. This place was a lot more decrepit and abandoned earlier on in Star Citizen's development before they had planet tech be a thing, right? Then they realized, they're like, oh, we can send all these people to planets and have a ton of content for them down on planetary surfaces. Maybe these shouldn't all be barren wastelands. So they went back through and they kind of redid Pyro. They made them not all completely dead rocks. Some of them still kind of are, but a lot of them hold a lot more like vegetation and people who can live there, generally with protection, but they still live there. So let's start from the middle, from the very inner circle, Pyro 1. Hello. And this information might be outdated. Let's see. Orbiting very close to Pyro's volatile star, Pyro 1 has a high atmospheric pressure and higher temperatures. All right, what do they have for us here? Pyro 1 is the first planet from the sun of the Pyro system. Its thick, high-pressure atmosphere hides a strange landscape beset by powerful winds and lightning strikes. Under the clouds, there is an ecosystem of plants and animals that endure its extremely high temperatures even during powerful stellar flares. Problem with this stuff is it is flavor text. And I don't think we can't expect all of this to be true as we go through these descriptions of the planets. Like, I don't know if they're going to have lightning. We talked recently about lightning, but are they going to have it in the actual game? I don't know why we should expect that. So let's see. They were covering these planets a little while ago in CitizenCon. Let's see if Pyro 1's here. Give you a little look at what that looks like.
We got some concept art from the concept art team, and the way that they visualized these solar flare hits was like glowing marks and streaks all over the planet. Unfortunately, the tech for the glowing part of it is still being worked on, so we had to make do with what we could use. So it's not glowing, but you can still see a lot of the blue coming in. Yeah, as you can see, Pyro 1 already has some volumetric clouds. Not all of the Pyro planets have their volumetric clouds yet. So let's jump to one of the blue spots on the planet. I just tweaked like the sun position a little bit to make it look a bit nicer. And then you can see why it's blue. We added like tons of these crystals to Pyro 1. We've used crystals before on Wala, but I think we were a bit too...
Just jumping forward so you can see more.
Important for us that we do add something memorable to each planet. In the case of Pyro 1, it's this spiky rock set that looks really intimidating. We tried to push the scale of the assets for the Pyro system. We felt like by now we got like the basic rocks and the scattering of the basic rocks to like a very good quality. So now we can explore more crazy shapes, I guess. And this is one of the sets that we made.
All right, so that's Pyro 1. It's kind of blue. Interesting because it's super hot, I'm assuming. Monox. This is Pyro 2. Let's see what this says on the star map. This is the ARC star map, by the way. It's on the not the roadmap. It's on the website. Anybody can access it. Pretty solid map, better than the one in game. Nickname for the toxic carbon monoxide in its part oxygen atmosphere bears the scars of old mining operations. What do we got here? It is the second planet from the sun of Pyro system, nicknamed Monox for the deadly carbon monoxide in its atmosphere. It has a temperate climate and was seen as a viable candidate for terraforming shortly after its discovery. However, its proximity to the system's volatile sun made it dangerous for human habitation. And the United Nations of Earth refused, it was back when they were the United Nations of Earth, refused to clear it for terraformation, instead allowing corporations to harvest its natural resources. Undeterred by the potential risks, outlaws eventually took up residence on the planet when the last corporations pulled out of Pyro in the 26th century. It's got a little bit of a history. This ain't your average North America. All the places in this game been around for a little while. Here's 2.
So now we're on Pyro 2. In comparison to Pyro 1, you can immediately see the planet is like way more colorful. There's more variation in the use and values of the colors. We have like browns and like bone white spots, some red, and it's all contrasted by like a blue clear ocean. So Pyro 2 doesn't have volumetric clouds yet, but they will be there at release. So now I jump to one of the biomes of Pyro 2. What I want to highlight here is the improvements that we made to how assets spawn on the side of mountains.
Also, good to note, now I don't know how much work they've done on this regularly since then. I'm guessing the planetary tech team has moved on to other things like Nyx, but they always improve their tech, and when they improve their tech for further along things, it does generally mean improvements on old stuff. So what we get might look better than this. Just saying.
In comparison to what we had before, this is a big step forward. Also, what you might see is the drawing distance of assets has been greatly improved. So everything you see here in the distance is actual geometry. So if we were to fly all the way over there, you will see that this is like cliff formations. And I think it looks really cool, like the silhouette of the terrain. Yeah, let's fly through the canyons. Yeah, I would do this in a spaceship, but I'm horrible at flying, so I'm just going to use the camera in editor. So now I jumped ahead to a really cool biome on Pyro 2. It's simple, but I think sometimes less is more. And
crackly.
In this case,
it's kind of gross looking.
Apart from
all right, so that's 2. And I mean, I've seen a good amount of it. 2 looks good. It's got a nice color palette.
Textures.
All right, Pyro 3. What's Pyro 3? I think Pyro 3 is like the one where we kind of want to go more bloom. It's a pretty place. Icy terrestrial world has breathable atmosphere of nitrogen and oxygen and has been overrun by outlaws. That's the old lore. What are they giving us here? Bloom is the 3rd planet from the sun of the Pyro system. Cold but naturally habitable, so they kept it cold. It became the epicenter of mining endeavors in Pyro. Pyrotechnic Amalgamated and other corporations constructed multiple staging sites, employees, barracks, and processing centers that were in use until the cost of their maintenance could no longer be offset by mining profits. Talk about derelict POIs to go visit on this planet. Abandoned when the last active corporations in Pyro ceased operations there in the late 20th century, they were claimed by squatters, outlaws, and former miners who lacked the means to return to the United Empire of Earth. Alright, and what does it look like? Here's 3.
Now we're on Pyro 3. You saw some of it during last year's keynote demo, but I want to use the opportunity to give you like an in-depth look at some of the biomes. So last year you saw that like yellow is kind of the accent color of Pyro 3. So from this distance you can see through the volumetric clouds like a lot of the yellow coming through. We talked about what's making it look yellow, which is the moss, and I want to like jump down to the planet surface and show you the amount of detail that you will see when going up close to the moss. So we're down at the surface now. I'm just going to jump in game. A lot of time and effort was spent on making the moss look just right, so like the right level of fluffiness and density, so it looks really nice when it like covers these rocks. And then we also have like lots of smaller moss on the ground. We combine it with like yellow grass, and it makes for like a really interesting biome. So it was really important for us to make this biome look really dense. So we pushed the amount of acids that we're using. So it's basically completely covered in foliage. Compared to Hurston, for example, Hurston and Microtech, which are probably our densest planets when it comes to foliage, this is way denser. The good thing is that we don't have any trees here, so all the budget we can use on ground cover, on grass. Now we jump to a Pyro coast biome. The improvements we got to the coast biomes is that we can now use a OPR override for every single biome. Previously, we could only use one global override per planet, which, as you can imagine, is not enough when you have something like Stanton 4, where you have snowy regions and the spruce tree regions, and one object preset just can't cover
more biomes.
Quality bar that we set for ourselves when it comes to improving the look of our vegetation. So this is one of my favorite new vegetation sets that we created. You can see the amount of detail on display here. We have like nice little flowers and these like knots or whatever, like pots. And it's just
we got nice
cool
little flowers here.
set. So when flying over,
Super pretty, everybody. Come on. Come on. Very pretty. All right. Pyro 4. What's after Bloom? Bloomy boy. Where do we go from here? We're going way out further to the weirdness that is Pyro 4, which is actually in orbit around Pyro 5. So old lore. Astronomers theorize that in the distant past, Pyro 5 collided with a planet-sized mass, warping the landscape and knocking it into the orbit of Pyro 5. Oh, Pyro 4 and then Pyro 5. Sorry. The new lore says Pyro 4 is the outermost moon of Pyro 5. And astronomers theorize that it was once the fourth planet from the sun of the Pyro system. Man, this is going to confuse the hell out of people. That the planet is a moon? At some point before humans discovered Pyro, a massive celestial body collided with Pyro 4, catastrophically warping its landscape, destroying its atmosphere, and knocking it into the orbit of nearby gas giant Pyro 5. Although the tectonic activity that resulted from this impact has quieted and a new atmosphere has formed, Pyro 4 is far from stable. It is on a long, slow collision course with Pyro 5 and will one day either crash into it or break up into a ring. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking. Like, that's why I want to see more star systems. Get creative with it. If they can work like missions or research stuff, science, anything into the unique nature of this planet, that would be sick. But let's see what it looks like. Here's 4.
Now we're on Pyro 4, which is my personal favorite of the Pyro system. Yeah, just full disclosure, you can probably tell that the clouds here are not done yet. They do look a bit busted, but yeah, they will look amazing once the planet comes out. So let's focus on the terrain shapes. We created some of these terrain shapes special for Pyro 4 because it's loosely inspired by like Scottish Highlands. So there's not a lot of like verticality, not a lot of trees.
Honestly, I really like this. Is like one of my favorites just because of the foliage and just the general vibe that it gives. It feels a lot more wispy, calm than the other ones.
And then you can see the amount of ground cover assets on display, the variation in color, but it's all grounded by like the color of the soil. And it just looks like we have multiple new vegetation sets on display here. So first of all, we have this bush set here, which is called I think it's called a fire stalk, which, yeah, it's kind of like a modified version of the real world, the red grass.
All right, this is the cool part of this planet. Sorry, I had to skip ahead to this.
Very organic and natural. Let's jump to the most experimental biome that we've made so far. So for this biome here, the concept art team gave us some really interesting concept art, because this is easily some of the biggest rock formations that we have in the game so far. Actually, let me try to fly a ship so you can see the scale of them. So they're massive in scale. And what was the hardest part about getting these to look right is that they're supposed to look really good from a distance, because you would expect something this big to be visible almost from space. But then the tricky thing is also to make them look good when you're standing up close to them.
That looks so good in the distance. It's gonna look so cool low flying around this planet.
Let me jump in game so you see how big these rocks actually are. So they are massive in scale. You can probably land your spaceship on them and walk on them, and they make you feel like really small. But I think it's a really good visual that you have these like dark gray rocks against the crimson of the soil and the grass.
This actually isn't V5 stuff. This is footage from like 2 years ago now, almost a year and a half ago. They're well past this at this point. This is before we had volumetric clouds, I think.
Where we have the volumetric clouds covering the terrain, and because the height map, the difference in height is so large, we actually get like shapes of the terrain poking out of the volumetric clouds. Yeah, you can probably spot some of the tiling issues that we have here, which is something that we still need to look at. But like I said before, this is still work in progress, so it's gonna change a bit. Because I mentioned biome.
All right, so that's Pyro 4, or that's a lot of Pyro 4 at least. We're kind of trying to keep some pace here. Pyro 5 is the next one, which Pyro 4 orbits. It's this big old boy here. It's actually a gas giant, so you're not really going to Pyro 5, but it has 6 moons, well, 5 moons plus Pyro 4. Yeah, wow, indeed. Largest planet in the Pyro system, Pyro 5 has a striking atmosphere swirled with shades of green and yellow. So it's like a green and yellow crusader. At least that's likely what it'll kind of render as. All right, and in the new lore, it says, Pyro 5 is the 4th planet from the sun of the Pyro system. It was given the classification of Pyro 5 when researchers came across strong evidence that its outermost moon once maintained a stable orbit around the system's star between Pyro 3 and Pyro 5. When it was struck by an unknown celestial body, it was knocked into Pyro 5's gravitational sphere of influence. Residents of and travelers through the Pyro system are known to harvest hydrogen from Pyro 5's green and yellow atmosphere. There's a really, this is almost like bedlogging. I feel like this could go the way of bedlogging, because I've heard whispers and rumors and murmurs about this. But Star Citizen has hydrogen fuel scooping, and that is supposed to replenish your ship. At the same time, See, I don't know what the heck their plan is for this anymore. It's so confusing. Like, I don't know. One patch, it feels like every ship is scooping hydrogen. The next patch, it feels like only a couple are, and then it's like booted in, or then it's boosted, and then it's nerfed, and then it's like, well, only some ships can. I don't know. But hydrogen fuel and harvesting hydrogen fuel is supposed to be, if not everybody can do it, probably a pretty valuable method of mining. Now, they're putting this in the lore that, where is it? That people come to harvest hydrogen fuel from the atmosphere. That could mean either people who are literally mining, harvesting hydrogen, or it could be just anybody in any ship that swoops down into the atmosphere. So we still don't know what this means for hydrogen scooping for everybody, but they're at least still hinting at the idea that you can do it with something. I'm pretty sure the Polaris is still rated to have fuel scoops, so I think they're just going to still include it with all ships, and maybe refinery ships can make it into something a little bit better. But you should be able to refuel just by scooping down into Pyro 5's atmosphere, which is pretty cool. Pretty chill.
This one is Pyro 5C. Similar to Pyro 4, you can see that it has a landmark that you can see from space. In this case, it's not a crater, but it's like, yeah, like a long streak of...
Okay, so this is actually a moon. Sorry, let that go too far. We're going to skip Pyro 6 real quick just to talk about this moon. He said 5C, so that would be ABC, Adir. Adir is the third moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 in the Pyro system. Jagged mountains and rocky hills dominate its crater-ridden landscape. No, I don't think this is it. Is it? Because it lacks protective atmosphere that would otherwise break apart most approaching celestial objects, its surface sees frequent impacts. The air is permeated with fine particles of dust that are generated during these events. I'm not seeing any descriptions that highlight a massive mark on the moon. So I'm going to assume it's still Adir we're looking at. So let's continue. Let's just see what he has to say about it anyways. It's a good look at one of the moons.
Obsidian. So let's fly down to the surface of the streak and have a look what it looks like from up close. Again, we start with like the global height map where there's like a little bit of a bump up, and then it goes down to form the crack, and then we scatter the ecosystem height maps on top to get the look that we want. So if we go down here, you can see we start with like flatland shapes, some smaller craters, and then it transitions into like these quite spiky looking mountain formations. And then down here, they feather into like these longer ridges of bedrock before it becomes smooth down here. And if we jump to this point, which is a really cool spot because like the sun just hits the obsidian in the right way and everything looks like nice and shiny. You can see here that the ground looks quite different from other planets. So instead of soil, it almost looks,
to be honest,
artificial in a way.
I'm pretty impressed at the details they're putting into the moons of Pyro 5. Obviously, they can do they're pretty good at doing planets pretty quickly. But I'm surprised that they're doing things like big planetary features on moons. Usually the moons are fairly normal, I think, just like single biome kind of thing, like Daymar or Lyria or something like that.
A bit more interesting, we decided to add some of these white, light gray shrubs, just so the area doesn't feel too samey, and it's always nice.
All right, does he go straight to Pyro 6 from here? He does! All right, Pyro 6, the last planet. Come on, there we go. No! Come on, map. Terminus. Terminus is a frigid, barely habitable planet with a methane-laced atmosphere. That's pretty simple, straightforward. Let's see what they've given us in the new lore. Terminus, outermost planet in the Pyro system. It is a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. It's technically breathable, but contains high enough amounts of methane and carbon dioxide that has negative effect on one's health after extended exposure. Pyrotechnic Amalgamated placed their main hub of operations in orbit around Terminus, later abandoning the station when they left the system. So Terminus is where most of the gameplay is going to take place. Not on the planet, but around Ruined Station in orbit, it sounds like. Here's a look at what the planet looks like, though.
We're going to end our showcase today on Pyro 6. Pyro 6 has a very interesting color palette. Like, I really like the yellows and the pale beige tones of the terrain. And then you have another blue ocean. As you can see, the terrain is kind of ridden by craters, and we get these really cool shapes where the ocean fills in those craters. If we jump all the way down to the edge of one of those craters, so now we're at the edge of one of those craters. I'm jumping in game right now just to show you what it feels like walking along here. You can see that we added some dramatic looking coral shapes, and then eventually you walk down here towards one of those craters that's filled with water. We have a couple of floating meshes here on the left. This is still work in progress, so one of us, probably me, has to go in and adjust the settings of the spawning here.
Floating rocks, dude.
Right at the edge.
It's Pyro.
And I
Anything
really
can
like
happen.
The color of the water and how it looks against the backdrop of the white chalky terrain. Then over here, I want to introduce you to our
Okay, that's the planets. Now, there were a couple moons here that we didn't get to see in there. We'll go through those real quick. So we got Ignis, the innermost moon of the gas giant, Pyro 5. The multiple canyons and dry riverbeds on its surface suggest that liquid water once flowed there in the distant past. Its frigid average temperature and deadly atmosphere of sulfur dioxide creates an unfriendly environment for those who lack proper protective equipment. Nonetheless, the moon sometimes sees visitors seeking to resupply their air reserves thanks to the small amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. That is gameplay right there. Like, if you want to make sure your life support system lasts, and we will get to talking about life support here, you're going to want to be able to go into a planet and resupply on oxygen if you need to. Vatra is the second moon from the gas giant Pyro 5. Its thick, high-pressure atmosphere of nitrogen and methane supports an ecosystem of plants that subsist on hydrocarbons instead of carbon dioxide. Some water is present on Vatra in the form of ice, but it is too cold on the surface for it to exist in a liquid state. We already went over Adir. Ferro is the fourth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5, a hotbed of seismic activity. Ferro experiences frequent earthquakes that disturb its deep oceans of brackish water. The moon has unusual ecosystems that thrive both on the surface and under the sea, supported by the carbon dioxide and nitrogen in Ferro's dense atmosphere. Fuego is the fifth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5. Relatively temperate but still cold, it has mostly carbon dioxide atmosphere with small percentages of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and oxygen. High amounts of iron sulfide in its soil gives its surface a yellow and black appearance. Infamous smuggler group headhunters often utilize Fuego as a stash point for goods during their nascent years in the early 2600s. Probably a lot of good places to visit on that moon. Vur is the sixth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5. Thanks to an increased greenhouse effect in its dense carbon dioxide atmosphere, it is unusually warm for a moon so distant from its sun. Its carbon-rich soil supports forms of vegetation that utilize crystalline carbon in their base structures. Before the system was overtaken by outlaws in the early 20th century, these plants were a popular subject of research amongst botanists. There's your science. Okay, so that's planets. I wanted to get past planets because honestly, there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to 4.0. But before we do, here's a little scissor reel just kind of showing. Here's Pyro. This is like one of the only views we have of Pyro 5, I believe, by the way. Another shot of Pyro 5. Wish I could land that smoothly. And then there's another look at these planets, I believe, at the end here. Vibes. I freaking love that song, man. I don't know if that was Pedro, but Pedro, I don't care if that was you. You make good music. Okay, so that's planets of 4.0. Honestly, that's the boring part. Let's get into the features and the stuff that's actually going to make these planets and systems matter. Space stations and outposts. We can tackle these two pretty much together. We saw a lot of the talk about these at CitizenCon this year. They've been in development for, oh my gosh, a long time. I bet you if we go and look up footage regarding colonialism, we can go all the way back. Oh wow, really, I don't have that much on it. But here we go. Sketches from 2020, where it all started. When they were literally just drawing down shapes that, to be quite honest, give some Tatooine vibes. But ultimately, this is what's turning into the outposts and villages we're going to experience in Pyro. Y'all remember it if you were here during that time. They were showing these in ISC quite a bit. A lot of 3D sketches, a lot of 2D sketches, and in general, just a lot of development on that. We kept going throughout the years. They would show us some concept art, some of the things they were developing, looking into. Eventually, we started to see some pictures of stuff in game, some white box stuff, a couple of video clips here and there. It's the video I just showed you guys. But eventually, they started to do more video. Oh, sorry, it's pictures. More video. More actual stuff. They were staging scenes, and you could tell that they were actually developing these locations. They were getting into the engine, and we were starting to see what they would actually look like. A lot of this is like derelict outposts. It's not the same exact style. But if you go to CitizenCon this last year, kind of get an idea of where this all led. Yeah, check this out. This kind of shows the development of it, and you can see how they expanded their work set to make this stuff.
For the first time. Now, at this point, we had our art style locked in. We'd worked on our library of content to the point where we could make smaller locations like this one, but with a limited amount of variety between each one. And this is what that library of modules looked like at that point. We'd established our main building modules, as well as some of our larger buildings and a number of smaller secondary and dressing and standalone modules. But each outpost couldn't be too large without there being some obvious repetition between the modules used. So let's have a look at that library today. So, in order to
By the way, I totally get you if planets are the main thing for you. Boring's the wrong word. Let's say the most straightforward part.
We've massively expanded our module library in terms of breadth and depth. And what I mean that, we go broad by making more modules with different purposes, and we go deep by creating multiple thematic overlays for each of those modules as well. And I'll go into what that means a little bit in a minute. But the challenge of a sandbox location like this, as you can see, it's not about building a single unique location. That can be quite straightforward, to be fair. It's about giving our artists and designers the building blocks, the affordance to build multiple locations that all feel somewhat different, even if they do share that same basic DNA.
So he'll get into this a lot more because they have both archetypes and they have skins for each location. Archetypes refer to something like utilitarian or colonial or, something like that, or derelict. And I can show you where that comes from here. These are archetypes that we've started to see throughout the game already, but they're really expanding them with the Pyro system, with the stuff they're doing now. I've shown you this picture a lot of times, but you can see the different archetypes here. Utilitarian, like R-Corp, like the stuff we have in Stanton. Colonial is including the frontier vibe. Derelict archetype, this is the stuff that we're seeing in Pyro coming in. We've also got streamline, metaclassicism, Henoism, high-tech, and supermodernism. I believe high-tech is kind of what we see at Microtech, and a little bit of Orison. But they've obviously got a lot of visual ways to differentiate all these things they're building. As long as they are just, working on building out the initial library assets, hopefully that means they can expand a lot more in the future. And here he talks a little bit about how these are going to be much bigger and more improved over the outposts we know right now.
Using this expanded library, we've been able to increase the individual location size, because there's less of that obvious repetition between buildings within any single location. And we can't really call some of these large locations outposts anymore. They become something more like settlements and imply a larger and more established community. Now, as a player, it will mean a lot more to explore and do at any...
Red, good to see you in chat, dude. Can we get a shout out for the man? Thanks for dropping by, dude.
Personal feeling mission types that might see you moving around a single settlement to complete objectives, or doing short hop missions between clusters of settlements on a single planet. So you might head up to a ridge to repair some wind turbines. You could counter an outlaw attack from a neighboring outpost, or on the opposite side, you might be stealing or destroying vehicles for the criminal gang that you're working for. But in the art department, we always say, show, don't tell. So let's stop looking at slides and let's have a look at some of the locations in game.
For the record, the breathing is not me. Yes. Honestly, it wasn't a ton. And here's about to talk about archetypes and...
themselves allow a broader range of item purchases.
So this is archetypes. I was talking about architectural styles, sorry. Archetypes would be like what you're actually doing at those locations. But that covers outposts. Let me show you space stations. And these locations are pretty significant because they also include missions in them, faction stuff, a decent amount more gameplay than we got with the outposts we have right now. Space stations, though. Ooh. Where were space stations? Was it the same one? It is the same one. All right, here's space stations.
Including jump days. I know I've spoken to a few of you. It's pretty good, right? Yeah? It was a sneak peek of our current progress. Let's kick off with an overview of the Pyro system. For the Pyro system release, we plan on 6 planets and 26 stations, including jump point stations that connect for Stanton and future systems such as Magnus. Rest stop stations are either in rundown or abandoned states. Citizens of Pyro, the Rough and Ready Outlaws, and Xeno Threat may control these. Our focus today will on the Rough and Ready owned Pyrotech Amalgamated Fuel and Resource Station, Planet 2, Lagrange Point 4, otherwise known as Checkmate Station.
Yay. So space stations are cool, and they're going to offer some more locations and areas. Here's some interesting insight actually that'll tell you some stuff about space stations that they're bringing with the Pyro system in 4.0, but also about the systems that are coming with these space stations and these new locations and generally reputation hostility and stuff that we're getting right now.
Published, some shopkeepers will sell you water and food on your way into and out of the station. Let's have a look.
You can kind of already get this experience from the distribution centers, and you can tell the locations they're building now are way more focused on alternative paths than just being a simple location. But it'll all come down to how well they let us utilize this for stuff. They say it supports future gameplay, but how much will you really use this? That being said, this is a ton of space for, like, remember, this is a space station. The rest stops we have right now are tiny compared to this. And anybody who got to play in the preview channel and get into Pyro, you can remember that the space stations are pretty big. And this just generally is talking about reputation gating, which again is something that they're starting to add to the game in general. Again, I'll give you a little look at this.
Let's have a look at some of those key features.
So this is engineering. It's not just coming to the ships. Engineering will be something that works in cities, outposts, space stations. We'll be able to run missions where you have to repair stuff, maybe sabotage stuff. Gravity might get turned off, temperature might get turned off. It can create hazards and stuff that complicates the areas so that every time you go into a space station, it's not just the same exact space station or the same experience. Between this, the difference from factions, and your reputation, there should be enough to keep it interesting. That's the theory. That was gross. Why are you just like chewing on the butt of that bug? Finally, my favorite part of this all, abandoned space stations. This is something that was on the roadmap back in like 2019 and then just got wiped away for the longest time. Really excited to see what they do with these.
Theme. Abandoned is a new, non-social location theme. Let's have a quick look at the current abandoned area on Checkmate.
Yeah, this will make for some good PvP. I'm not somebody who is interested in PvP very much, but running into somebody in that situation, the tensity of it that'd be exciting. So, space stations and outposts, cool. They're filling up the space a little bit, but what comes after that? What are you actually doing to play? We move on past the solar burst. The solar burst is cool. Dangerous natural disasters that happen regularly around older stars like Pyro. In these instances, the sun erupts with a high-energy particle wave generated from its surface, traveling at 15% the speed of light through the entire star system. This dangerous high-energy particle wave can be avoided by hiding behind other objects that are big enough. So, this is an interesting part of the Pyro system. Not sure how this is going to land. It's a bit annoying, which is kind of the point. And I look forward to seeing kind of what we come up with to avoid having to deal with solar bursts. But it adds to the danger of Pyro. And ultimately making Pyro feel like a place where you're constantly on the lookout seems like the goal. Like, yes, you're out there, you're in freedom, you're away from the government, you can do what you want. But at the same time, you are not protected. This place is dangerous, and you kind of got to be actively paying attention. Nice system personality, yeah. Life support. This is where things start to get into gameplay. Life support is implementing the first iteration of onboard life support systems in ships, which entails a ship component that generates breathable gas when turned on, and management of said life support component within the vehicle loadout manager. So this is kind of in support of engineering. The entirety of life support is kind of like what, if you watched my recent video about bed logging, same sort of energy as bed logging. life support is supposed to be a method of limiting a ship based on what it can handle, what it can support. Is your ship rated for 3 people or 10? If it's rated for 3, then you put 10 in it, you're going to run out of life support very quickly, and people are going to have a bad time. It was something that was introduced in 2022 in a more substantial way here, when they were talking about engineering by Dan Truffin. I'll let you guys have a look at how it works. But ultimately, this is part of your ship's systems, and you kind of have to keep an eye on it so you don't, die.
Also demonstrate many aspects of the life support system, including making new players suffocate.
So basically they show atmospheric levels here, oxygen over on the side, door opens, room vents, person dies. As you know right now, you can be in your ship and when the door opens, basically nothing can happen, right? You could be standing in the door looking out in space without a helmet on and you're good. But the room system eventually is going to be using actual air and atmospheric systems that have to depend on your life support system. And if you open the door, that could be a problem. This is why Crusader ships have so many doors. And while I don't like them, I bet that's going to save my life once or twice. You can see the oxygen level dropping, and he's done. Fill it back up, and he's back alive. No, I don't think that's how it works, unfortunately.
Fire expulsion.
Okay, I actually really like this because right here, you can see that not only is the fire raising the temperature of the atmosphere in the room, it's also eating up the oxygen in the room. And then when you get rid of all the oxygen by opening the door, the fire goes out. So this obviously has a lot of ramifications to it. This can complicate a ton of, the fire hazard is something that's coming in. It's going to take up your oxygen. It's something you're going to have to put out.
In each room.
Ultimately, it'll be pretty substantial, especially for multi-crew ships, this system. So yeah, you get temperature control. And this could be beneficial. Oh man, I can't remember if they said that components might run better in different temperatures. But these kinds of things could be beneficial for anything from cargo to passenger transport. We get explosive decompression.
Making new players suffocate.
So this is what I was talking about. If you have like a clown car situation where you put too many players on a ship that's not meant for that many players, the oxygen won't be able to replenish itself fast enough. You could stop this by having some people wear their helmets, but then they have to go through their own oxygen supply. So,
Venting and filling rooms with atmosphere.
And here they are showing how atmosphere can move between rooms. This is kind of just to show that it's not a static volume. And I think we actually have video of them visualizing this with smoke. This is from, oops, sorry. This is from a very early version of, well, not early. It's 2021. Not too much earlier, but you can see the smoke is moving through a vent in the wall, kind of showing the way that, I think they're using sign distance fields for it. Yeah, you can see sign distance field right here, SDF. And that's how they basically make it look like oxygen and air and smoke are moving through actual spaces into other rooms. Sign distance fields are like
and
a very
players
thin
suffer.
film
Again,
that overlays an object, kind of like how the shields look on your ship. Okay, so that's the life support system, and you can kind of see how it would complicate gameplay. And I'm just going to jump to fire hazard since that's very closely related, and I'll show you how the fire hazard is joining life support. It's somewhere here. Yeah. So this will show you how it is joining life support in kind of something new that's going to complicate ships and add to basically the dangers of space, you could say. Check it out.
So this is height-laid volumetric fog. The smoke fills the room and it goes up to the ceiling before filling the rest, and we're simulating that. So to finish, we're going to take a look at all of that put together in the game. Thank you.
Priorities.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.
That is an early look at this. We're going to have to see how handling fires and playing with fires and all that works. The components catching on fire, fires might start from taking damage during combat. Like these two systems, fire and life support, aren't just features to drop in for gameplay. These are like one of those things that kind of wiggles their way into a lot of different things. Maybe you are running a mining laser too hot. You have a malfunction, it starts a fire on your mole. Like, you just wouldn't really expect that, but that's a thing. Now, we know engineering pretty well. We've looked at that. It's already available in in Arena Commander on live servers, so you can actually try this out yourself. It says it allows players to manage, maintain, and repair various ship systems. Players can assume different roles that each provide a unique gameplay loop. With engineering gameplay, players have to contend with item degradation, malfunctions, and power management. This will expand it a lot more than what we have right now. Right now, we can repair stuff, we can divert power, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot more that goes into engineering than what we've been given so far. Let me show you kind of, here's a brief talk about how it expands.
So, as you can tell, engineering gameplay will bring a lot of changes. Some of those changes are adding batteries to ships that will allow you to get a little bit of extra power for a short amount of time. Allowing you to control items directly, where it's not only their on-off state, but also their resource consumption. And where the biggest change that will come in this update is basically to the resource consumption and generation. So let's talk about energy balance. Currently, ships are balanced such that they consume less energy than they produce. What I mean with that is that the sum of all items requires less energy than the power plant will provide. And this has to change. The energy rebalance that I will explain to you now will affect mainly bigger ships. Single-seaters will still behave like they do now. For big ships, we will focus on item groups. Those require energy, but your ships will not provide enough energy to have all components run at 100% all the time. Instead, you have to decide what you want to have permanently powered by your power plant. So managing decisions will have an impact now. You could decide, as in this example, to shut down your thrusters to turn on the weapons. Isn't the best choice, since you will not be able to maneuver, so might not help when you are attacked. You would be able to shoot though. And here comes in the batteries. In scenarios where you need to react, you can activate the batteries and use the additional power. Batteries won't last forever, but you at least can power additional systems. You will be able to recharge the batteries again, but you need to free up energy from the power plant to direct into the batteries. I think that was a little bit more than just a recap, but now Guillermo will talk about malfunctions.
Okay, we won't go too far into malfunctions, although it does get interesting. You know, here's a little demo we can see.
Here's a video of the fire in action. You've seen another video.
This is more about how fire combines with engineering.
With a fire extinguisher, pretty simple. It just works. Here's a bit of a bigger fire. It might be that you cannot only put it out on your own. So here we have one crew member that's going to try to put it out with a fire extinguisher. To mixed results. And here we have the option of using the life support system Thorsten showed up before, and yes, venting the area. And now you can see that the fire, once we get to that compartment, has been successfully put out.
So that's engineering. Alrighty, charge and drain. This is an interesting one. I don't have anything really for charge and drain. In fact, the way that they describe this is a little different than what I was thinking. Adding the ability for players to drain, store, and charge objects with power using the multi-tool. Includes the ability to overcharge objects and also remove distortion items. Distortion damage. Huge. This last part is huge. So this is overclocking coming back, I believe. Which will be a huge part of being an engineer. In fact, if we jump back to this is the part of engineering that people forget. Mostly because they haven't really shown it to us yet. Listen to this. We don't really talk about this engineering point just yet.
As an engineer. The three basic engineering types are tuner, mechanic, and manager. So the tuner is the person that is responsible for your strategic decisions. The tuner is responsible for setting up the items in advance depending on what you want to achieve with your ship. So if you want to go exploring, you ask the tuner to bring the items into a state that they are less prone to wear and tear, that they sustain longer, that they can or are more energy efficient or resource efficient. The tuner defines item groups, base resource consumptions, responsibilities or roles on your ship, as well as setting new min and max performances for all the ship items you have. So overall, the tuner is a very proactive role where we want to reward players who plan their crew activities in advance. We did plan the tuner to be more relevant in advance of your adventures, but I'm sure players will figure out ways to make use of the tuner in various scenarios.
You gotta make use of your tuner. No, but really, that's what this sounds like. Overcharging objects sounds a lot like getting into your ship, starting that work there, that startup process in the big carrier that all you and your friends are taking out while they get supplies. You're on board, overtuning or overclocking some items, making sure that everything is repaired and up to date, getting your item groups together and setting the proper power levels for whatever it is you guys are doing that day. Feels like that pre-engineer, that pre-mission roll. Don't know how successful that will be or not, but we're going to start experimenting with it from 4.0, it seems. You can also remove distortion damage. This seems like a really big part of being an engineer on board a ship. Getting around the components, removing distortion damage, because that's the best way to shut down a ship. A lot of people are going to focus on using distortions to disable you so they can board, and that would be a good way to stay away from that. So charge and drain is less of what I was thinking, which was battery charge and drain, and more the gameplay of your multi-tool being able to charge and drain stuff. Don't know if that means that we'll be able to charge and drain other things. Charge and drain was only something that I saw on the roadmaps, really. I see you guys are saying that it was referred to at other points. I'm interested in knowing more about how widespread it's going to be besides what they just told us with the multi-tool. Here's the charge and drain T0, which we saw work on a long time ago. All back-end tasks related to creating the first pass of the charge and drain power feature that will be used in future locations and mission updates. Didn't really tell us much. So, well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that next quarter, but that should also build into some gameplay in the underlying systems, kind of like engineering, you know, gets applied to multiple places rather than just being a feature that comes in, like a new gun or a new ship or something. Multi-tool updates are coming along with that, raising the multi-tool up to the standard from Squadron 42 with additional functionality like cutting, repair, and updates like improved handling, integrated UI, and the use of batteries. So batteries are definitely coming in. Again, we'll have to see how widespread they are. Repair is mentioned here. We don't know what exactly that means, but repair is going to be more than just pointing a gun and pressing a button. So I'm not sure what they mean by this. And then cutting. Cutting is something that we've seen in so many freaking CitizenCon demos that I'm sure you're all sick of it by now. In fact, we have a demo open. Let's see if we can find a cutting, an instance of cutting here, because you know they've got to do it. If it's a Star Citizen demo, we gotta whip out the multi-tool cutting. Look at that, cutting. There we go. Oh, cutting a hatch open so that you can sneak into a into some mission area in ways that are not expected. Wow, how crazy. Tell me more. Is this a system that you've once used before and wanted us to get excited for when it came to the multi-tool? I can't imagine. Dang it. I didn't time that as well as I wanted to. There we go.
The multi-tool has different modes. Cutting, could be mining, could be welding, repairing. In this particular case, we're just going to cut the 4 kind of hinges, locks off, so we can take the grate open and get through it.
Hold on a second. I swear I've seen cutting before. Could you show me another instance, please, just to jog my memory and make sure I'm fully aware of how much you've showed us this feature without ever actually giving it to us? Come on, I know there's another one here. You will not escape me. So much cutting throughout the years. So, you can imagine it feels good to finally hear that it's coming to the game and we can stop seeing it in demos without using it. But yeah, 4.0, multi-tool cutting, multi-tool updates, get it up to the proper standard. I like to hear it because when I saw the multi-tool, this is not the same multi-tool we will have. This was a special military multi-tool that they made for the game. Regardless, I love the way this multi-tool just kind of functions, animation-wise and everything. The beam itself, it all looks pretty nice.
Have also seen additional improvements.
The lighting effects, the sound, the UI.
Unique to each location, while allowing us to tell the story of the world around you.
Cutting is kind of in the game, but they don't really use it, you know? Like, we used it once for a mission on Hurston, but it never really expanded from there. Moving on, MFD reworks and new displays. That's a solid one. Mainly because the MFD rework is actually going to make a huge deal. Like, of all the UI updates that they showed at CitizenCon, I think the MFD rework might have been the one that most people were interested in. What are you guys? I guess the star map, obviously, but like the HUD, meh. The all the UI updates, meh. The looting menu, maybe. Interaction, sure, but the MFDs, people were wild about, and for good reason. Once I can show you where the actual update is, here we go. And did they mention? Hold on. See if they mentioned the rest of the cockpit. Rebuilding ship multifunction displays and building blocks, including new design, functionality, and customization options. This update also includes a select number of updated ship HUDs, giving greater visibility as well as a manufacturer-based visual overhaul. Oh, f***ing solid. Check this out. They used to do... They once showed us some pretty old concepts of different HUDs. Actually, I think I can search HUD and I get a better result here. Wait for it to populate. Network attached storage, am I right? Slow boy. They only previewed the Taurus and the Cuddy Black new MFDs. When did they do that? My gosh, there it is. So here's Drake. These are some concepts that they never moved forward with, but they showed us. They kind of this retro 2D vibe to them. But this is supposed to be Drake's version of the HUD, whereas right now, we're all seeing kind of a generalized or a more Aegis-leaning HUD in all the ships we're using. Mainly because Aegis is the main provider of ships in Squadron 42. Where's your Apollo? Oh, I wish I knew. Feel like they've endlessly be redoing HUDs. They've been slowly working on the HUD for sure over the years. It's been a while. Mainly to get it onto building blocks and then finally to get it up to a standard for Squadron. But if you look at their HUD, so... Actually, I guess the HUD looks quite different now. It did look the same for a while. That was the Drake HUD though. If they're giving us new HUDs as well as MFDs, I hope they also give us new cockpit interactions. But here's a look at what these MFDs are going to bring us. Best part about this, in my opinion, is saving MFDs to specific ships. Oh my god, and saving the screen that's going to be on one... Fucking hell. Love it.
I'm here to explain some of the spoilers with more space to enjoy the stunning vistas that planets can offer, and less cluttered views so you can focus during combat. This also means that the UI elements are now more relevant to the situation, linked to the operator mode. For example, when we change to scan mode, the crosshair has scanning information about your target, and even the MFDs have changed. Some of these elements can be customized, but we'll see more about that later. For this demo, we're showing the UI developed for this Gladius. Basic information related to navigation will always be available on your view, and this Gladius displays all of that with holograms around the dashboard. But other ships may have different layouts and styles, on brand with the manufacturer. For example, the Drake, that makes more affordable ships, rather than fancy and probably expensive holograms, may use physical screens, dials, and light indicators. This dashboard shows your current speed, the remaining afterburn, and some decoys available. On both far sides, we have status indicators that will show things like if your landing gear is on or any other flight systems. Worth mentioning that we have prototyped these for the demo, so right now they're holograms, but on the final design, these are going to be physical screens. On the far left, on the top of the dashboard, we have the indicator of which master mode and operator mode are you on. So let's change that to combat and talk about these new MFDs. So we have reworked all of these MFDs from scratch with brand new views using our UI technology building blocks. We can still navigate through these MFDs using the classic mouse interaction, holding F and then moving the mouse. On the left here, we can see the scanning view, which is going to show information that you're taking.
Key bindings. One of my favorite parts of Elite Dangerous was being able to press a button and navigate the screens. Like, on the joystick, you could press your button, flick into the screen, press a button in, and put you in the menu. You could navigate the whole screen with just the thumbstick on your stick, or just the stick on your stick, on your stick, on your stick, and your stick. And it was so nice. I hate freaking having to zoom in and interact manually by mouse on these screens in Star Citizen. Super freaking happy that we're going to get key bindings for it. I'm sure I won't remember them and I'll have to still use my mouse, but at least it's there. I'll get it at some point.
When you scan a target, it may show information about the ship name, the pilot name, or even the current operator mode of your target, so you know if they're just chilling around or they are ready to fight you. Cycling to the left one, we have the target status.
Wait, what did he say? What did he say?
Then the current operator mode of your target, so you know.
Oh, I can't believe I missed that. All this time I've been talking about how maybe they will use nav mode versus SCM mode for people to understand whether the people. Duh, dude. Freaking duh. What is the default SCM mode? Is it guns? What else would you be in? See, they need to... That doesn't really compute. So he said you can see the people that you're targeting, you can see their operator mode. Now, I get that as being the way of understanding what a player's intention is instead of their flight mode being nav or SCM. But at the same time, if you're in SCM operator mode, why wouldn't you be in guns? So no matter what, if you're in SCM mode, you're probably in guns. Maybe you're in scan, but who's going to sit in scan by default? So I feel like they need a different default mode for SCM if they want you to be like, oh, I can see what mode I can see which mode the people are. But then you'd be turning the guns off in an SCM mode and people would hate that. They just, just doesn't feel like it. At least as far as a communication method of your intents, master modes misses the mark in my opinion. But we'll have to see how it works. Operator mode telling you kind of what people are doing.
Name, the pilot name, or even the current operator mode of your target, so you know if they're just chilling around or they are ready to fight you. Cycling to the left one, we have the target status, which will focus on emissions, damage, and orientation of your target. We'll see that in action later. The next one, continuing to the left, will be the self status, which is contextual. So during navigation, that will show your current fuel, but during combat, like right now, will show information about your guns. You can click on the gun, and you can see basic information about that. You will see the name, and you can also see in which group they are assigned, which Yogi will explain later.
It's so much better.
On the MFD on the right side, we have the power management, where we can distribute the power of different systems of the ship. You can click on the triangle and move it around to change the distribution, and you can turn down the total power of the ship that will generate. The classic key bindings that you all know already works, so when you change the power management, you will see now a triangle on top of the radar to show you the changes. Now, instead of using mouse, you can also use key bindings to select MFDs and cycle through the views, which might be faster when you are in certain situations like during combat. And for those pro players out there, we have added about 100 key bindings, and I mean 100, to navigate through all of these systems. So you can fully customize how you want to navigate through them.
Yes!
And I really hope that's more than enough to use on your keyboard, on your HOTAS, or even on your game class setup. But if you need more, just let us know. Anyway, I think you're not going to need even those many shortcuts. For each operator mode, we now persistently save which views are shown on each MFD. So you can customize what's important to you for every situation.
I freaking, oh, God, yeah.
So as an example, during combat, you might want to have target information on your MFDs, but maybe when you change to quantum travel, have your current fuel, spend some time on the configuration screen, for example. Let's talk about this configuration screen. We're going to have now here a variety of options, from customizing UI elements to enable systems of the ship. We may see some of these later in action with Yogi. These settings are now available on this screen, not in the global settings of the game, for quick access. So just as a warning,
thank God,
changes on the settings that you already know, but we'll tell you all about it when we have it ready.
Seriously though, being able to just, man, the settings of the ship specifically in the MFD, in that ship, just being able to customize your ship is really nice. I hope that they store your customization for your ship in a file so that you can make it persist if there's ever a wipe, because there's no way I'm going to do this if they get wiped whenever there's like a ship wipe or a update reset or something like that.
And the important bit about this is that they will persist to your ship. So you can keep different setup of which UI elements and even ship systems enable for how you personally use each of your ships. Now, some of you might be thinking that these Gladius doesn't have enough MFDs. Can we enable the top setting? For those of you that you want to see even more information, you can now cast versions of these MFDs to your helmet.
I wonder what happens if you don't have a helmet on.
For this, you're going to need to equip the appropriate helmet, so it's connected to your ship and I can get all this information. You can use the key bindings, as I mentioned before, so you can select which cast do you want to control and how to cycle through them. So you can pin views that are important to you that will move with your camera. So as you have seen, if you're aiming at the target or if you're moving with your head tracker, those views are going to be always with you. With all these tools, you can customize your experience and have it ready for every situation that you encounter with your ship, always displaying the relevant information to you. So for example, during combat, you may want to have all the UI elements enabled, all the pips, all the crosshairs, so the information of your ship on the physical MFDs, and maybe focus on the target information on your cast, so they're always on your view. But maybe when you go to quantum travel, you can turn those casts off so you can enjoy the vistas. That's all from me. Now we have MFDs ready, and let's bring Yogi back to tell you all about flying your ship. Thank you very much.
Okay. One thing that's in this video that I want to talk about before we move on, because I think this is still, this isn't on the roadmap roundup, but I do think this is something we'll see with 4.0, and we'll get to this. I think there's several things, I won't say quite a few. I think there's several things that are going to be on the, in the 4.0 update that they haven't put on there yet. Stuff they've been working on and pretty heavily hinted at. And quantum travel is one of them. But like I said, at the end of this, we'll get to those types of features too. Check this out.
So this is the time until you actually reach your cruise speed. The ship will experience forces, and you as a player, you're responsible to counter these forces. So there is an element of failure. Okay, Brent, let's show that. And take your hands off.
So that was a quantum travel failure. They're making quantum travel, so for starters, they're making quantum travel more interactive by default. Not in the sense that you have to always pay attention, but you do have to kind of lock in your quantum travel as you're going. That's what they're about to show. But they're also adding quantum boost, which is essentially like Super Cruise from Elite Dangerous. It's a little more manual, it's immediate, it's a way to get short distances, and you'll see that too here in a second.
So what you just saw is basically the failed attempt to quantum travel. Brad wasn't countering the forces, therefore he was thrown out, the quantum bubble collapsed and threw you out. Your ship doesn't like that. IFCS needs 5-6 seconds to recover from that, during which time you're just tumbling, right? So and this is not just like dependent on your skills. If you think selecting a proper quantum drive doesn't matter in the future, think again. You want to take care of your quantum drive, you want to repair it and keep it in good shape. So if you buy a cheap one, your travel will not necessarily be faster, but it might be harder. Okay, so Brent showed how it's done properly.
For those wondering, in chat, I see you guys are might be a little confused. You don't have to sit around for this. This is, his hands are off. Bubble locked means you don't have to be in your seat.
You can now go hands off.
It's the same system. They're just adding some additional stuff to when you start quantum travel, not quite when you actually are using it. So that's the regular quantum travel. I'll let him explain.
Short-range jumps. Sometimes you jump somewhere or you go somewhere and you see the next point of interest is like 1,200 kilometers away. We're not going to force you anymore to travel that by hand. You will use a technique called quantum boosting. It's a quantum-based short-range jump for like something between a couple of 100 kilometers to like 30,000 kilometers or so. When you use quantum boosting, the process is practically the same, but the quantum bubble will not stabilize itself, so you need to be hands-on for the whole time, and the speeds are naturally, well, slower, but it's not slow, it's still quantum traveling, right? Okay, so Brent, can you boost to, oh, reinforcement needed. Yeah, let's go there, let's boost. Oh, actually, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so what Brent is currently showing here is, I think I forgot to mention, quantum boosting works in every direction. You don't need nav points.
It's the best freaking thing ever. I'm so glad they're bringing that back.
Brent is awesome, thank you. Okay, so now please boost to reinforcements needed. So if there's nav point and you boost, your quantum travel system will pick that nav point to go to. Welcome to Pyro 3.
So the point of quantum boost, this is the crux of people who are asking about running away in master modes. Quantum boost is literally you press the button and go. It's not, you're not lining up with the like we talk about how, oh, I don't have enough time to get away. This is, you literally press a button and you're gone. So with quantum boost coming into the game, things do definitely change, and I think that's part of this whole rework of quantum travel. Arguably, you could have said they should have waited to release master modes with this, because this is a huge part of master modes that's missing that I think is just sort of gone from consideration. I hope that it comes in 4.0, but we'll have to see because it's not on the roadmap roundup. Quasi Grazer. These large, warm-blooded herd animals were originally discovered on the vast plains of Quasi on Terra. Most notable for their unusual method of carrying their eggs on their underside, the Quasi Grazer has become one of the standard seed animals, and there can be commonly found on most terraformed planets in the UEE. We've seen these guys a lot, like actually a lot. You could probably look back in their archives. Maybe not. I know we had like a long ago. Nah, it's not on here. I don't feel like looking. Going back to CitizenCon though, we got a pretty good look at these guys. They were here at the farm, clearly showing a potential of domestication, but I think more importantly showing the potential for things like crafting and harvesting resources. If these can be domesticated in some way, that's just like base building. Base building will probably allow for some level of baiting these things nearby. Maybe if you plant enough of this stuff at your base and these are nearby, they will stay there, and you could just run out and harvest their whatever you want to call them. And that could be a really big part of base building. I mean, let's not go crazy, but they have talked about farming. We've seen a couple of things referring to farming in this game now. Majelvi, thank you for the members on YouTube. That means a lot. Appreciate your support. I hope you've been enjoying the stream. Going back here, this is the first time they talked about farming in Star Citizen. They were just kind of showing the growth of plants as they go through their phases. But it was a moment that they mentioned farming, which was a pretty big one. And then they've also talked about how plants will change. I don't have that. how plants will change based on seasons, sort of getting at the idea that you'll be able to pay more attention to crops and stuff. So space cows, I don't think they're really going to bring anything new to the game per se, but it's another version of fauna, and it'll probably factor into crafting and being able to sell goods sometime in the further future. So this is probably one of the least consequential additions in the patch, but it's fun nonetheless. Additional player customization is just including additional updates to hair and facial hair options, as well as face piercings. I hope that this is coming to the hair that I like. RSI Zeus MkII ES. This is the base version of the RSI Zeus coming in 4.0, as we've been expecting throughout the year at this point. For those who don't know the Zeus, I will give you a look at it real quick. Specifically the ES, because that is the more... Oh, this is wrong. That is the one that's coming, and in my opinion, that's the one... That's at least what I would get. I will probably get this ship in game at some point, because I do really like the design of it. Or, I guess not so much the design, I like the vibe and meaning of it. Here's a look at the Zeus ES.
Move your goods around the universe.
Of the 3 variants, the Zeus Essential is the one that harkens back the most to the original design, with the original white on black paint job and the vertical stabilizers. We also worked to maintain the silhouette of the original, but brought that forward to modern day RSI design with tons of technical detail and layered panels. And on the underside, the landing gear and the underslung turret, as well as the entrance ladder, fold in perfectly flush, leaving behind a super smooth underbelly, just like the original design.
But you probably all want to see what the inside looks like, so let's have a closer look. Despite the sleek and slim body of the Zeus, we've been able to pack a lot into it to give everything you need when you're doing the deep space exploration. You have a fairly comfortable habitation and recreation area, so that when you're out away from home, it's not too unpleasant. In addition to that, the rear room has a 32 SU cargo capacity, as well as being able to fit a cyclone, so if you do decide to land on our planet, you can have a look around. Talking about the loadout, it's a ship designed for 3 crew. It comes with 4 size 2 shield generators, 2 size 2 power plants, 2 size 2 coolers, and 2 size 4 pilot-controlled weapons. And obviously the lower turret that Elva mentioned earlier is a size 3 remote turret.
Now the Zeus mark was always designed from the
Now
beginning.
I'm just going to show you like the current progress they had on the ship at that time.
We're not just going to show you some images.
Get a better idea of the size of this thing.
White box development right now. Do you just want to have a look? Shall we? Okay.
All right, so as you guys have seen with the Spirit, and with the many ships we've released thus far,
I'm currently starting Sing mode thanks to Catch Up Gamer.
But before any of them get to that point, they have to go through a very specific development process, and this is the first stage in that process. We call this white box. At this point, we've taken the concept, ripped it to shreds, and then reassembled it and plugged it all back together within the editor so that we can get a real good look at what players are going to see when they finally get this game. At this
Plug it into the editor.
We've already ripped out all the thrusters, we've ripped out the landing gear, the turret, the seats, the beds, all of the interior spaces. Plug those guys back in, and we have what you see.
Plug it in, plug it in. That's an old one. Sorry,
So
that's
again,
an old
the beginning
one.
of the process. At this point, we're able to jump in, start throwing in cargo, interacting with doors, getting in and out of beds, maybe in and out of toilets, and just getting an overall sense of what it feels like to interact with the vehicle. And it is very common that in this stage, we will make some adjustments from the original plan. As an example, on this ship, we've just made the decision to expand the center corridor, add a little bit more space to the rooms. And as a result, that's going to make it much smoother experience for players to traverse the interior of the ship, as well as for AI to traverse the interior of the ship.
Smoothing it out like peanut butter.
Airlock that leads to the enter-exit ladder. And up here in the cockpit, we've separated the co-pilot seats a tad bit just to allow players to get in and out a little easier. So with white box, not the prettiest stage in the process, but it is essential that we nail this because it means we'll be able to deliver a beautiful ship that is also extremely fun to play.
It's good to look at, even in that phase. All right, so that's the ship that's confirmed with the patch. And with that, that wraps up the stuff that they have listed for 4.0. Now, that's solid. Okay, sure. I don't think this is all we're getting. In fact, they're already leaving stuff out. We know that there are new missions coming with Pyro. Like, there's a host of new missions that have to come with Pyro. There are new factions that are coming. Come on. Let's go back to CitizenCon real quick. And look at, oh gosh. I mean, look back on Life in the Edge. I mean, these outposts that we saw, yes, those are new. But how about the factions that are coming with them? Where are they? It's in a different one, huh? Character advancement, this stuff. So like the Headhunters, that's part of the group that we were talking about. Here's something that they don't talk about anymore, actually. Like, this has been completely and utterly demolished from all development discussion. These patches. These pouches. I actually forgot about these. Not as unachievable as 4.0 from yesteryears. It's definitely doable. Like I said, there are other things that I expect to hear more about. Before I was going to say these guys, the factions, obviously Rough and Ready. They're going to have missions. They're going to have probably a mission giver or two that's associated with them. In Pyro, we might even see the Pyro Crab. That seems like they would have put that on there with the cow, but there are things that they're going to leave off of the roadmap, at least until later on in the patch. Or maybe until the patch comes out. And then we got Headhunters. They give you your kind of Mad Max look. These are going to be one of the main factions in Pyro. These guys, again, will also have missions and some content to offer to you. And of course, you got to get that ash powder on your nose for whatever reason. One of the bigger things that we still haven't heard much about that is considered a, where is it? A journey to 4.0 thing are these investigation missions. Let me show you guys here. Check this out. Here are some new missions that they haven't touched on that I think are going to be very interesting for a lot of players who aren't interested in the industrial stuff, but also aren't really interested in combat that much. These should be good enough to bring us to new locations, and I think these are the kind of missions they could slip into 4.0 without saying too much early on.
So the next stage in this whole process is building a pitch. You know, we have to come up with our ideas, how we want it to work, and then we have to present it to...
Actually, I think I skipped some useful information here. Nah. Let's keep
come
going.
up with our ideas, how we want it to work, and then we have to present it to CR, Tony, and Todd, and make sure they're all happy with it and all of our visions are aligned. So when we're building the pitch, we start off by going over the ideal experience we want for the player. We start off with the most advanced things, all the gameplay mechanics we could dream of to bring this sort of role to life as a detective. And then we have to start looking at stripping it back to see when we can release it, what's the minimum viable product for this experience.
And in the case of the investigation mission, we came up with 2. So the first pitch is extremely simple, and it revolves around being able to find a definite answer, like something that is undisputable. For instance, we came up with a mission where there is a repairman that's gone missing, and you can go to his office and you can find some correspondence that will lead you to another place which will have his itinerary on there. And they're all crossed off until 1. And if you're smart, you'll go to that location, and should you go to that location and do a little searching, you'll find his body there, and he's been like electrocuted, fixing the final thing on his list. And there's your definitive ending. Whereas the second pitch, it's more about allowing the player to choose when they're done, like when they think they have solved the mystery. And the way we do this is we scatter evidence around the location and clues that lead you to that evidence. And obviously there can be red herrings in there. You can get your answer up to a credible state, which might still be the wrong answer but you can complete the mission then. Whereas if you'd have carried on digging a little more, maybe found a few more clues and followed them, you would perhaps find an indisputable piece of evidence, like, I did it kind of thing, that would get you the bonus for the mission. And both pitches had their strengths and weaknesses. The simple pitch, we could see how easy it was to scale, and it involved less complex narrative work. But we ultimately decided to go for the second because we liked the idea of giving the player the agency to decide when they were done.
So this is talking about how they'll scale it, I think.
So we're in the prototype phase with the investigation mission, which is more important than ever because it's such a complex mission, and we need to ensure that it's scalable and that other designers can make their own mysteries with it.
With the pitches, we can now prototype and sort of get that gameplay feel and see which one we want to explore more for the player's experience. Some of the hardest points of this are going to be the scalability of it. An investigation at its core is a story, so the story should always be at the forefront and the focus.
So the first stage of prototyping was to prove that we could make it like a mystery happen in the most restricted location we have, which was like a derelict. So this kind of interplay between the crew of it. From there, we're going to expand so that it takes into account more locations and uses all of the evidence retrieval interactions that we currently have. For instance, like you can kill a guy and get information off him. You can find a corpse, get information off it. You can loot a box, get information off it. And then we'll be prototyping the newer ways of getting information off of things. We're looking into using the med gun to find the name and cause of death of people, and we're looking into being able to find the mobiles in an inventory and download data from it.
One of the hardest things that we have to figure out is the story. The investigation will live and die by its story, so we work very closely with the writers to try and figure out what kind of story we want to tell, what kind of clues we want to give, and then after that point we look at sort of what obstacles we want to put in your way, keypad locked doors, enemies, traversal puzzles, things like that.
The main challenge for creating this mission is ensuring that the player has enough guidance to complete it without putting mission markers on everything. It is supposed to be about them searching, figuring clues out for themselves, and finding the answer themselves.
We want you to still feel like that detective, but ensure that we're giving you enough information in the ways that we can.
And we're working with the UI designer on the new mobiles, which should really help with this.
Yeah,
So this has been our...
I don't know. I don't really agree with the aspect that they shouldn't do investigation missions. I mean, if you think that all of the work they're doing to try and build these out to scale wouldn't work, I mean, that's what they do with everything in the game. If that's not going to work, the game's going to fall apart anyways. The way I see it, they've got mining, salvage, farming, exploration, ship combat, FPS combat, well, bounty hunting, mercenary work, engineering. I don't know if I said salvage yet. I might have not. Repair person, cargo hauler. Like, you've got possibly a dozen different types of gameplay. I don't think putting investigation missions is going to lead to like something going wrong, because specifically it seems these are meant to be tied in. I wonder if they'll have the other first person stuff that they mentioned. Specifically our FPS scanning and radar. I wonder if this is going to be
you can use this information to
a 4.0 thing.
Where's the weak link? Which enemies can I take down without being discovered? There's a risk here, okay? So there's a charge up time, means you can't do it all the time. It's going to recharge slowly. You see the bar at the top slowly going down. Until that goes all the way down, I can't ping. I can't even do a short ping. And it's going to spike my emissions or my signature. So an enemy with the right equipment or tech level might discover me. Okay, so let's move on to some talk about weaponware. So
yeah,
we're going to see on simulation.
There's also weapon wear and tear.
More and more worn over time.
They haven't talked much about this though. I think this could be a ways out.
This beyond weapons to other FPS.
That includes like gun jamming and stuff like that. The new EVA stuff is probably something they're going to look at.
All right, so we made it re-entry much more forgiving. So this EVA has a new prone lateral pose, and this is really important to us because it allows us to get close to surfaces.
We already got EVA. I think this is going to be added to.
See that in this video
4.0.
here? Okay, and as it gets to the end, we're going to jump off. Okay, here we go. Into that. And this smaller profile lets us get into spaces we couldn't get into before, or not easily with the old EVA. We're going to traverse through here, thread the needle.
Crawl isn't in game just
and
yet.
also, the collision is much more forgiving. We're going to slide off at slower speeds, so we're not going to be spinning away. Okay, big reveal. Love this station. This is amazing. And we also...
The new EVA is in, but you can't use your hands to move around like this. This stuff. This part. This is zero-G push and pull. They'll be limiting our EVA fuel and allowing us to move around with our hands. You know, honestly, it kind of feels like 4.0 is going to be basically what was in this Star Engine demo, right? You got the cows, you got the clouds, you got the jump points, you got the new quantum travel effects, which are not confirmed for 4.0. That's a me thing. The only thing I think that's in here that I'm not noticing would be the whale. And who knows, maybe they'll try to surprise us with it. But I think this is the only part that I'm not seeing planned. Pyro, yes. Jump points, yes. New space stations. New factions. New moon. We've got engineering with the fire. What's up, Sig? You had clients actually send you work? Gross. So we saw this already on the roadmap roundup. We know this is coming. Oh, Maelstrom. Maelstrom is what we're missing. We already got all these water effects. We're getting these outposts we saw. I feel like the water effects we get weren't as intense as this, maybe? I don't know. So Maelstrom stuff. This is not so far included in 4.0. So that's another thing from this video we might not get. And then Blood and Tears, which, you know, if that's important to you, sorry. Everything else, I think, like Star Engine as the video itself from CitizenCon, everything should be in the game by this CitizenCon, it seems like. Hope you enjoyed this review of the Roadmap Roundup for 4.0. Over the next 3 months, we'll be covering these features in depth in videos. On this stream, we'll be doing deep dives. If you are interested in checking that stuff out, make sure to subscribe or follow. And keep an eye out on the channel. I'm started a new video series this week, something that's going to be a little more like these streams are. More just kind of talking to the camera, talking about something that interests me, a little faster news, getting it to you faster because I don't like doing these videos 2 weeks late when a interesting talk about a feature comes up. So check out the channel. You should see some more stuff covering these features on there, but also I'll see you hopefully at next streams. If this was your first time, thanks for checking it out. If this wasn't your first time, thank you for being a repeat viewer. It's a good time.